Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And we're going to talk about the latest sort of revelation in the COVID inquiry. Aamer Anwar, who is the solicitor for the Scottish victims, has questioned something that goes very much completely to the heart of everything that's happened, and is the thing that could ultimately lead to the Shipman sisters going to jail for many, many years for crimes against humanity, or, if you prefer, possibly mass murder. It depends on how we look at it. I think either of them will count, and as long as they both end up spending the rest of their natural lives in prison for what I consider to be an awful crime that they have possibly deliberately committed. I have to be careful with my words, but it is certainly the general feeling that these two are responsible for the utter destruction of 5,500 people, almost a genocide of the old, allegedly. This is due to the rulings they made, the advice that they formulated, and the direction that they deliberately perhaps took. Again, sort of flowery language, please forgive me, but I can't be being sued, so I have to put enough ifs and whats and wherefores in there. But we'll have a look at this. It's all to do with the policy of sending sick people into care homes. Here goes. Now, of course, this is the policy that they are most fearful of. The feeling is that they haven't been completely honest and open and transparent. Say it ain't so. And there's questions as to whether they've even submitted this policy guidance to the inquiry. But of course, this is what it lies at the heart of any future case against them. Because if their policy was deliberately to put infected people into care homes, and we know and suspect it may well have been the case because it may well have been a conscious decision to try and knock off the elderly, both to save pension money, but also to reduce the number of people likely to vote unionist. In their view, apparently and allegedly, older people were more likely to be unionist. And so this may have been a very cynical attempt by them to deliberately, basically mass murder, possibly, all these elderly people. And I think if that's the case, then if it's the case, def big if, but if it's the case, then perhaps, crimes against humanity do come into it. And perhaps, off they go to The Hague and stand trial there. Who knows? Anyway, SNP in COVID inquiry secrecy. Of course, secrecy. As they refuse to say whether care home policy documents have been sent in for scrutiny. Now, we know the rules, don't they? If they refuse to say yes, then the answer is no. They will not have been sent in. And if they haven't, then we have to, first of all, ask why. And then secondly say, now will you please submit them unredacted and in full and published so that we all know what is going on. Of course, that's the last thing they want. And they're probably sitting there furiously, grinding them down, burning them, destroying every copy in case the truth ever comes out, the truth that would possibly end up with them doing, well, the remainder of their life. In her case, won't be that long, but, life in prison. Anyway, the Scottish Government have been accused of operating under a veil of secrecy by COVID inquiry lawyer Aamer Anwar after failing to disclose guidance, or whether guidance, which allowed infected patients to be moved into care homes, had been provided to the independent probes. They won't say yes, which means no. The SNP Government have been accused of operating under a veil of secrecy after they refused to confirm this. This is suggested sending untested patients into residential homes were deleted from public view. Now, these existed on the website, and then they were taken down and they were whizzed away and you couldn't see them. But there are people out there with copies, and of course the Wayback Machine has shown this, and we've shown that in a previous video. The policy meant that older people suffering from the virus were placed into care homes despite being positive. This obviously would seem to most people to be a deliberate policy at trying to kill people in care homes. What else can you draw? What other conclusion can you draw if that was the case? It resulted in some sites being plagued with the disease, and it was actually official guidance published in April 2020 that led to this. And this is despite being blamed for the thousands of deaths in care homes. It is not known whether the publication will be scrutinised by the COVID inquiry officials. A directive was put in place allowing infected patients to be shuttled to the institutions from hospitals deliberately. They made the decision to deliberately put infected patients into care homes where there were vulnerable, elderly people. That, to me, says mass murder. That, to me, says a crime against humanity. That, to me, is genocide of the elderly. Whether it is to the authorities is another matter. However, it was revealed last week that a key version of the document, titled Guidance for Step Down of Infection Control Precautions and Discharging COVID-19 Patients for Hospital to Residential Settings, had been deleted from public view, leading to cover-up accusations levied at the Scottish Government. Because they don't want the truth to come out. They don't want anyone thinking that that woman is a mass murderer. They don't want anyone thinking that she's responsible for the deaths of 5,500 people as a result of deliberate policy, making the choice, making the option, making the decision that lots of old people must die. Possibly. The guidance has now been made available online following the criticism, with a broken redirect link being blamed for its absence, which sounds to me like a complete and utter pile of horse shit. It was them not wanting anyone to know about the awful decisions that evil people made. The Sunday Mail asked whether it had been provided to the Scottish and UK public inquiries, but failed to get a straight answer from the SNP executive. And you know when they can't give a yes, then it's a no. If they can't say no, then it's a yes. It's always the opposite of the one word they refuse to say. A spokesman said, while it is not for the Scottish Government to disclose details of evidence requested by and submitted to the inquiries, Public Health Scotland has made clear that version 1.0 of this guidance is publicly available on their online archive. That is not the same as saying, yes, we've submitted it. And so, no, they haven't. So you have to ask, why so reticent? Why are they refusing to submit what could be the most damning policy of the entire debacle to an inquiry that could and has the power to suggest criminal proceedings begin? Weird that, isn't it? Both inquiries are issuing their request for information in confidence, and it remains a matter for them to determine whether and how they publish details of such requests and evidence received. That's a lie. That is an absolute lie. Because they've said while the evidence itself is confidential, the request for evidence is not. They have publicly come out and said that. And so again, lies from the SNP. You get nothing even approaching the truth from this bunch of two-faced liars. In fact, they're not even two-faced liars. They're one-faced liars because everything's a lie. They never tell the truth. To make matters more murkier, a spokesman for Public Health Scotland also failed to confirm whether the document had been provided, leading to accusations that the Scottish Government were lacking the transparency which was being sought by COVID victim families. Aamer Anwar, the lead solicitor for families at the inquiry, said, "A simple yes or no would suffice. To use a veil of secrecy does nothing to build confidence that there's been transparency, because of course there isn't. We all know there isn't. All public institutions should be clear there'll be no hiding place for them should they try to obstruct the search for truth." And of course they're going to try and hide the truth. They can't have the truth coming out because they don't want people going to jail for the most heinous of crimes, mass murder, genocide, that sort of things. This is where it's likely to go. This is what people are thinking. People are now of the opinion that perhaps the senior SNP in control, the likes of Nippy, the likes of Gene Freeman, even Humza Yousaf can get dragged into this. All of them, this little coterie of evil. You know, it's almost like the Fourth Reich, isn't it, at the top? It is Hilda Goebbels at the top there. All of them are guilty of the same sort of crimes that the High Command were done for in 1945. And perhaps we should be treating them the same and dishing out, I think, the same punishment. I'd certainly pay to see it. I'd pay to pull the bloody lever. Anyway, Campbell Duke, whose wife Annie died at home, in a home, has given evidence to the Scottish COVID inquiry, and he said, if these public inquiries are to be effective, They need to have a full picture of what went on. The Scottish Government appear on a number of fronts not to be taking part in a spirit of complete transparency so that lessons can be learnt. I think one of the biggest lessons that is learnt out of this is that the SNP are untrustworthy liars, that the SNP almost certainly were complicit in the deaths of 5,500 elderly people in homes across Scotland, and did so as a result of deliberate policy so that they could reduce the pensions bill and reduce the potentiality of union voters. This seems clearly true. Whether it is or not is up to prosecutors, but I think for most people in Scotland it is now apparent what these people were up to and how evil they perhaps were. 2 days after this became public knowledge, the then Health Secretary Jean Freeman announced changes to the rules and included the requirement for 2 negative test results. Oh yes, once they'd been found out. Prior to that, of course, it was no, in they go. Positive, in they go. It's only after it had been come out and they realised that they could be in trouble that they changed it. They are shady AF, aren't they? And she needs to be in a courtroom, but not in Scotland. Do it somewhere independent, where the SNP government don't control the judiciary. Send her to The Hague. Send them all to The Hague. I'm coming up. I've said it before, and I'll say it many times again, I'm sure. When they cannot say yes, you know the answer is no. And so when asked, have you sent this to the inquiry? And they say anything other than yes, then you know they haven't. And then you have to ask why they haven't. But it becomes apparent. It's because that is the smoking gun. That is the evidence that will put them in the dock. That is the evidence that will lead to them being perhaps convicted, maybe, of the deaths of 5,500 elderly people. Only let's not call it the deaths of. Let's call it what it may well be. Possibly the murder of 5,500 people. A crime against humanity. I'm done. I hope this has suitably enlightened you. I hope that you now look at these people in a different light. We can see how worried they are that they're actually trying to hide evidence of their own duplicity and complicity in some of the most awful crimes that were ever perhaps committed, maybe, allegedly. Flowery language. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this has earned a subscription. There's more to come on this subject, I'm sure. It's a story that's destined to roll. Till next time, stay safe, stay well away from her, because she'll kill you if you're old, allegedly. Bye.